Arakni Marionette is one of the newest heroes released in the Hunted. Their hero ability reads, your attacks with stealth that are attacking a marked hero get +1 power, and when this hits, this gets go again. Also, at the beginning of your end phase, if an opponent is marked, you become a random agent of chaos. So there's a lot going on here, let's break it all down. This ability is actually an interesting mix of Aura's +1 and Aurora's conditional go again ability, essentially making it 2 in 1. But of course something this powerful comes with some drawbacks. The main ones we're going to be focusing on is 1, only stealth attacks get the buff effects, and 2, your opponent must be marked. Next, let's get into those agents of chaos. In the past, demi heroes have been game winning on their own, but these ones don't follow that tradition. Instead, I found the demi heroes to be more of a consistency tool / turn extender. Black Widow is the best of them all. It seizes immediate tempo by forcing your opponent into losing cards either from its effect or the fact that now they have to block. Funnel Web on the surface looks good, but since it's face up to your opponent, most of the time they just either Arsenal or D-react to get around the effect, or they just don't Arsenal at all, making Funnel Web the worst in my opinion. Next up is Orb Weaver. This one lets you turn any assassin card in your hand into a 1 card 4 with go again. This comes up a lot when you have tempo and you're trying to fix a bricky hand. After that we have Redback. This one's the second best after Widow. This makes blocking on hits hard near impossible since you go both tall and wide from this one effect. After that we have Tarantula. This one's actually pretty good in my build since I'm leaning heavily into daggers for marking, often meaning if you flip this you just deal 3 damage to your opponent, which is nice. And Trapdoor lets you true to a trap from your deck for free. Everybody loves some free card advantage. So like I said, there's a lot going on with this ability, but to summarize it all, the base form is really powerful, pretty much 2 abilities in one, and our flips aren't game winning on their own, but they function as consistency tools, smoothing out our turns. Now with this ability, Mario becomes an aggro deck first and an assassin deck second. That distinction is important because Mario's main strengths come from combining high damage output with insane disruption. To fully capitalize on these strengths, I broke down the game plan into 3 simple steps. 1, find a massive combo turn ASAP. 2, use the tempo created to build a lead. And lastly, deny any form of comeback from your opponent. How I came to this game plan was I realized 2 critical things while testing Mario. Defensive cards weren't cutting it. They helped during the step 1, find me enough time and health to be able to find my big turns and keep the hands. But afterwards, they would all become game-losing bricks to draw. And 2, most of Mario's small hands just suck. Dagger into Stealth is a 2 card 5 that even if it disrupts the opponent was not doing enough. And when you understand this fact, you realize almost every other deck in the game currently have better 2 card hands than us. So giving our opponents an opportunity to win out on these small trades during the game was simply playing into our weaknesses, so I wanted to cut that as well. And off the back of those weaknesses, this is why I've fully committed to this 3-step plan. So let's break it down a bit. For your combo turn, we're going to be utilizing our key power cards, I like to call them, to leak a bunch of damage and strip multiple cards out of our opponent, which takes us straight into step 2, creating a lead. Off of the back of that combo turn, we often get a minimum 2 to 3 turns of tempo. During this window, we want to create as big of a life lead as we can with relentless pressure as we prep for step number 3, denying any comeback. This is where the assassin's second part comes in, because we can simply keep our opponent off of having any massive turn to get them back into the game by putting our focus on our disruptive tools while hunting for the kill. Also note, during this step, thanks to the amount of power cards we have in our deck, you can often find another massive combo turn during this step, which is just a nail in the coffin against anybody. So let's get into some games to show off just how potent this strategy is before going into some pros and cons afterwards. But quickly, if you're really looking to master this strategy and this hero, I've broken down everything in my Metafight guide. With Road to Nationals this month, I thought I'd put some extra explanations into everything through this guide, where I break down the combos to a fundamental level, Mario's overall matchup spread, secondary game plans, and even my own personal notes on how to play specific matchups. So make sure to check that out if you're interested. But even if you're not, you should definitely check out all the other creators on there with guides of their own. Not sponsored, I just really think it's an amazing resource to level up your game. But link in the description, and let's get into these games. So here we're up against that new mono red Syndra deck that won the calling. We just Arsenal to shelter and passed over to them. They lead off with a Fire Tenant strike first. When going first, I like to just try and slow the game down just a tiny bit. So I block efficiently here by putting a 3 block in front. Then they attack for 4, which the shelter covers nicely. Then our opponent attacks for 3 on hit mark, which we're happy to take down to 37. Opponent arsenals their last card and passes it to us. Over to our turn, our hand's pretty weak to be fair, just gonna go dagger for 1, opponent says no blocks, So we flick the other dagger since we're buying it back this turn. Opponent down to 38. Next we attack with the red pickup, retrieve the dagger we just flicked, and attacking for 3. Opponent thinks here and actually ends up blocking with a Wrath here. In this spot, I was thinking they must have a handful of bricks to be blocking with this card, so I can comfortably put them on a D-React. There may be some 1 cost right now, so extremely happy about that. We're just going to Arsenal with a second shelter, then we flip in the red back, which is pretty lucky, pass to them. Over to their turn, our suspicions were correct as they pitch a Wax On to attack with the kunai for 1. Our hand is good and we have a shelter in our arsenal, so I'm feeling really safe to just say no blocks this turn. So take 1, down to 36. And then they actually use their blood splat chest here, which I didn't notice at the time. But next they follow up with a red brand of Cinderclaw. We take that, down to 33 we go. Next, off that floating resource, the opponent attacks with the second kunai for 1. I take that, down to 32. Opponent pops chest here as well and ends on a breaking point for 5. On hit, destroy my arsenal and draw a card. We get to dodge that arsenal destruction though by using our shelter from the arsenal, which is massive for us. Opponent also flicks one of their kunai here, then damage or resolves and stuff. We take 1, down to 30. Opponent draws from mask, but doesn't crack their boots in the damage step, so they just re-equip the kunai they flicked and pass to us. Over to us, since we have red back, I'm going to lead off with the blue mark of the Black Widow, which might look weird, but I just want to force cards out of them through blocks or from this disruption effect. It's a tough spot from the opponent's side though. Not sure how you're meant to block a blue mark with 3 cards in hand and unflipped in the red back. They decide to block for 2, probably with a dead devotee. All good, I'm going to activate red back here, discarding the up sticks. Then I'm just going to use the mantle to buff by 3, since we haven't drawn a good swap target yet, if I were to Arsenal it for next turn. So it's coming in for 7 now. They end up taking 5, down to 33, and banish a yellow brand from Cinderclaw from their hand. Then I just Arsenal this pain and pass it to them. Over to them, they have a weak turn of just attack with a breaking point for 5. I'm not sure how obvious this is to people, but this hand is like 23 value when you learn the lines. Also, mask here is a perfect opportunity because everything is a hit here, so I'm essentially going to get 5 value out of my hat no matter what. If I hit trapdoor, I get to just full block the breaking point, and if I hit anything else, I can buff the graphene that I'm planning to play off of. So block mask here, we hit tarantula. This is what I was talking about, tarantula being good on my list. So happy to take 2, down to 28, opponent pass to us. So step 1's coming, big combo turn. Pay attention, pay attention. So the sequencing of this is pretty important. I'm going to lead off with the pain from the arsenal here for 3. Opponent declares no blocks. I'm going to flick here, deal 2 damage. They're down to 31. We gain a resource from our vest. Opponent then react with loyalty from beyond the grave. Cover it, which is fine. No need to buff here. Next, we play Spinneret to make a graphene and buff our next stealth attack by 3. Then we play our Save a Bloodshed and use the resource from our chest to attack for 8. Go again, on hit lose an extra 1, and we draw a card. We also have Tarantula buff if the opponent tries to block this out, so it's gonna get through. Opponent attempts to block it out with a card, their boots, and a shelter for 8. I'm gonna buff it by 3 without hero ability. No response from the opponent. They take 3 from the dagger, lose a life on hit, they're down to 27. Then we draw from Saver, drawing into a Stains. That's a perfect arsenal target for us. So next we just attack with the pain for 3. No blocks, they take 3 and 2 more and get marked. Opponents on 22, we Arsenal Stains and we pass it to them. And this is what I was talking about with our big turns. Our opponent just blocked 14, took 11 damage and still lost their entire hand, and we kept it Arsenal. So essentially it ended up being a 4 card 25. I'm telling you, Mario is an aggro deck first, but yep, over to them. They attack with a yellow brand here. But since we're ahead, we in ain't blocking shit territory. I'm just focusing on pushing this lead now. We take 2, down to 25. They Arsenal, pass to us. On our turn, gonna lead off with Kiss of Death. Impossible to block correctly thanks to Stains and Snapdragons, so the opponent doesn't try. We play our Stains, pushing it up to 7. They take it all. They're already down to 14. Then we follow up with CNC, which is just brutal for our opponent. They have to double block it to protect their arsenal. We flick the Kiss of Death, so they take another 2 damage, down to 12 already. We Arsenal this Mark the Prey and pass to them. So it's 12 to 25, opponent on a 3 card hand. I've already leant back in my chair. I'm thinking this game's over. And then I instantly misplay when the opponent attacks for 3. Whoops, I should have blocked there. I can't actually convert my entire hand safely, which I'll explain on our turn, but it's all good. Take 3, down to 22. Then they attack for 4 with a Rabble. I block with the Leave No Witness here, just in case I have to snaps to Mark the Prey. So I take 1, down to 21. They ship it back. So here on our turn, just gonna go Dagger, flick the graphene to get a resource from our chest. They take 2 down to 10. Then we attack with the mark the prey. And if they have the reaction here, I'll just use snapdragons on it. So attack for 4, they block for 3, taking 1 down to 9. Next, we could have played prog here and then snaps codexed, but I'm just going to accept that I misplayed on my blocks last turn and keep my snaps in case I brick for the next turn. So I just played codex for CNC now. Opponent tanks here, giving up their chest and 2 cards from hand. This is exactly what I was saying about this game plan. After your big turns, it's just impossible for your opponents to come back into the game. So we draw a prog from off of our ponder. I'm going to arsenal it, flip into funnel web and pass to them. On their turn, we ruin their turn yet again. So they just have a rising resentment for 3. Too bad for them. I don't run no bricks in my deck, no blocks, take that down to 18. Then they just pass to us. On mine, I start my chain with the prog from Arsenal. Opponent declares no blocks. I then play stains for go again and activate the funnel web here. The opponent plays a snag from Arsenal and wax on, which kind of blows me out there, but we're just too far ahead. So next, I just follow up with Kiss of Death. They declare no blocks. I snaps it for go again. They take 4 all up down to 5. Then I attack with the mark of the Black Widow for 3. They say no blocks. I flick the kiss, so they take 2 down to 3, and then they play their second loyalty from Beyond the Grave. So not bad, but it's 3 to 18. We have full tempo still. Opponent draws from their loyalty triggers, and then they just scoop them up. So yeah, that's an example game of what the goal is for this deck. We executed a big combo turn, and then you just keep pushing the advantage. High damage, high disruption, never giving them a chance to even come back in the game, even though they were drawing all their D-reacts as well. But thank you for watching to the end. Make sure to go check out my Metafire if you're still interested, and good luck in your RTNs. We outie, peace.